and Smetty here, and I had one major complaint about Florida.
Only one?
Welcome to yet another edition of Golic and Smetty. They continue to let us do these, so we will continue to do them. I'm Mike Golic Sr. She is Jess Smetty. Again, for those maybe joining us new who haven't joined, we are both Notre Dame alum. I in 85 and Jess in 2016. So she is a mere child. She's as old as my youngest, which makes this spot. Oh, don't say aw, because you whip me because you age shame me all the time. So I don't want to hear that.
No, you made it sound sweet, though. It was nice.
Yeah. I try to make it sound sweet, yet you're the one that takes the sledgehammer to this relationship.
That's true.
But that's okay. So you just came off of a vacay, right? So how we feeling? Normally when you come off a vacation, you need another vacation to rest up from the vacation you were just on.
That's accurate. I'm still like, it's not even really a vacation. So I was in Charleston visiting my other podcast co-host, Kate Fagan. We did a little photo shoot for our podcast, Off the Looking Glass. And we got to hang out a little bit, but we did have to do some work as well. And here I am. I'm still in South Carolina working again because I never stop working, Mike. I am just such a hard worker. But I also was able to squeeze in some fun outdoor activities between working. And we were also here for Easter visiting my family. So I got to play a little bit of pickleball. I got to go kayaking. I was supposed to play golf, but like the Masters, we got rained out on Saturday. So, I've just been living the retirement life down here, and I am loving every second of it.
Yeah, except you keep working in the word that you were working, so let's cut through that bullshit.
I am working very hard while I am
whatever.
Doing
so that's been
six-year-old activities. But
that's been another thing that's been going on is you and Kate Fagan do Off the Looking Glass, and you and I do Golic and Smetty. It seems it turned onto Twitter for a little bit of we are vying for your loyalty. Listen, you can't be 100% loyal to two podcasts.
That's not true.
You just can't, Jess. So at some point, you're going to have to choose. So I know you're out in Charleston. Kate Fagan is whining and dining you out there to try and make sure
I was with you in Phoenix like a month and a half ago.
You had to because of your job. You had to because of your job. You're in Charleston on vacation, visiting your friend Kate Fagan, laughing and having a good time. So how am I supposed to compete with that? What am I supposed to do? Because you can't show loyalty 100% to two different sides. You just can't do it.
I think we should this is reminding me of the biblical parable where the two women are claiming ownership of the baby, and the king says he's going to cut the baby in half, and the one woman's like, no, you can have him, and that woman's the real true mother because she never let the baby
never
get
let
hurt.
it happen.
Yeah, I think we need to go in front of some sort of magistrate, and someone has to threaten to execute me, I guess.
Oh, I'll threaten to do it. I will. Absolutely. I'll do it right now. I don't care.
Right.
It's fine by me.
All right, so I think that proves that I should probably be loyal to Kate.
Probably, yeah. That's probably the safe bet, I would say. I'm glad you've been playing some pickleball because I've been out. Chris and I, my wife, have been playing some pickleball, and that's really what we're gearing up for. We were playing with Sydney, my daughter Sydney, and her husband Ben. We play against anybody we really can. We haven't played as much as we have liked to. I've been doing more traveling than I thought, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the older generation kicking the younger generation's ass. I don't know who your partner is going to be, but you're going to have to take on my wife and I. Maybe when we're out at the golf tournament, the Golic Family Foundation golf tournament out in Notre Dame in June, there might be a little side hustle bet going on.
That's not a bad idea. So I don't know about you, but do you ever play pickleball just one-on-one, or do you always play with a teammate?
I've always played with a teammate because we've always had like four. I'd like to try it alone a little bit as well, but then I know I'm going to be moving twice as much, so that doesn't thrill me.
Exactly. I kind of like playing one-on-one pickleball. The times that my boyfriend and I have played against other teams in Miami have been interesting to say the least. So the pickleball scene in Miami is very intense, which it probably is in most places.
Yes.
I've heard that there's often pickleball, tennis, sort of like court wars going on.
Yeah.
The pickleballers, want to take over the courts that the tennis players don't use, but then the tennis players are there and they're like, get off our courts. And there's not enough to go around. And it's, it's not like soccer where you can go in a field and play pickup. You need a net and you need it all measured out and everything like that. And you need a proper pickleballing surface. But
you need to know where the kitchen is.
You need to know where the kitchen is. You need to stay out of the kitchen. That's what everyone always tells me. So in Miami, like there have been times where we've gone to play and we've tried different places and they're all pretty similar. There's like 4 or 5 courts, but there's like 50 people trying to play. Yeah. And they have very strict rules that are like self-governed about waiting your turn and when you can play and if you can play singles while there's doubles going on, et cetera, et cetera. And I found that instead of it being a situation where we're all kind of having fun, like we play against some strangers and everyone gets along, we tend to get like scolded or like taught, like I'm not going to play pickleball with people for them to teach me how to play better. Right. If I lose, I lose. Right. And I will take it upon myself to figure out how to play better. But Mike, these pickleballers, they just want to tell me everything I'm doing wrong. They want to tell me every little thing that I can do better. Like, oh, you got to get better at dinking. I'm like, I don't know what the hell that means and I don't care. Like, let me just go out and have fun. And so it's soured the experience for us slightly. So I'm sure that when we play against each other, you won't do that, or else it's not going to end well.
I will not. And I would imagine from what I've seen and heard as well, that these people that are teaching you are older people, right?
Always. And this one couple, they kicked our asses. Yeah. Like they kicked our asses. It was like 11-1. Like they almost skunked us. And I'm fine losing. Yeah. Like I don't want to lose, but like I'm not going to pout about it. But what I don't want to be, doing is get lectured while I'm having like a recreational break from work from some man who's not a family member, not a podcast co-host, just a random guy telling me like, oh, you're holding your racket wrong. I'm like, I don't give a shit. This is what I want to do. Let me do it.
Completely agree. This is supposed to be an extracurricular activity, but you got and it's people more my age who are like this. And I haven't run into them yet. And I pray I don't, because I will have no problem rifling the ball at the dude. I mean, when we're up there tapping it, at dinking. Right outside the kitchen, dinking when we're doing that. I'm going to lace one at him if he becomes an asshole. I don't care if I lose the point. It doesn't matter. See, it's weird because I was out golfing the other day and with some guys who, listen to the show and stuff. We were all around the same age. And so we're doing a lot of talking. And the one guy asked, are you, when you get out on the golf course to do this, you get competitive. Does the old, pro ball player come out in you and get competitive? And I said, a lot of people think it does, but it actually doesn't. When I retired in 94, I basically left all my competitive juices there. I mean, I'll try hard when I did stuff when I retired when I was 32 and I'm 60, did sports, recreationally. And I tried, I tried to win if that was, but I didn't lose my mind. I don't have a lot of competitive nature in me right now. I'm not going to get pissed off and say, oh shit, here we go. We gotta slam it and win it. I'm like you. I don't give a shit if I get beat. I don't care. But don't make it a bad experience. Don't be an asshole on the other side.
Unless I'm doing something like legitimately dangerous.
Or breaking the rules.
Keep your comments to yourself. Like, Mike, I'm curious, could you ever picture yourself at a pickleball court playing against a stranger who's 30 years younger than you and telling them to change their technique? It's bizarre to me.
No, I couldn't and I wouldn't. So, but I have heard horror stories. Listen, out here in Arizona, we know there's plenty of retirement areas out here. My mother-in-law lives in one of them, and she says the pickleball there is
vicious.
Relentless, just vicious with these people.
Something about this sport, I agree. Yes. And you know what? It's tough because it's so much fun, but something about it, pickleballers are getting a bad reputation, and everyone, the pickleball community, us included, because we are outliers of it, but we're still part of it. We all need to take a deep breath while we're playing pickleball. There's enough court space to go around. We'll figure it out. Let's all have fun and share the courts and be nice to one another, because pickleball, we've got a bad reputation and we need to fix it. All right.
Well, did you happen to see, it was last Sunday or was it the Sunday before, the
pickleball slam?
Agassi and Roddick against Chang and McEnroe. McEnroe was phenomenal as usual.
Yeah.
Now
that was like right outside of Miami. Like it was.
At
20
Hollywood.
minutes away.
It was at the casino where I've gambled more than a few times. But that was fun to watch. These guys really didn't know anything about pickleball. I thought it was they maybe owned some leagues and were promoting it. They didn't. They were just out there playing for like $1 million purse by the way.
Andy Roddick, if he went to the pickleball court that me and my boyfriend went to, this guy would have told him he's doing something wrong.
Well, I mean, again,
there's
the dude,
no threshold for self-awareness.
The dude needs a wiffle ball to the face is what he needs. I mean, that's just a oops, hey, sorry, keep yapping, and I'm going to do it again. But that was fun to watch, and I know in South Bend or in the area there, they're building brand new courts, so we'll have places to play. Hopefully, we can have some time when you're out there, and we need to do that.
I would love that. That would be really fun. And maybe if the scarcity issue goes away, the pickleballers will play nice.
Yeah,
I almost rhymed. But
yeah,
I didn't.
Well, you're a poet and you don't even know it. To other things that are very competitive out there, we've had play-in games in the NBA now. Not a ton to talk about yet, but at the taping of this, we had the first ones. Atlanta beat Miami. Atlanta, again, with this huge lead and like 24-point lead, and they almost blow it. They've done that before, but they're now the 7 seed. So they're going to take on Boston. They're locked in, and then Miami takes on the winner of Toronto and Chicago. So those 3 teams are vying for the A seed. Over in the West, the Lakers won in overtime over Minnesota, I think 108-102. Lakers are now the 7 seed. They take on Memphis. And Minnesota takes on the winner of New Orleans and Oklahoma City on Friday for the 8th spot. And in that one, I mean, Anthony Davis inexplicably fouls Mike Conley with 0.1 second to go on a 3-point shot when they're up 3. Conley just buries all 3 and sends it to overtime. But that was unbelievable that he fouled him. But I kind of dig the play-in. When there's that riding on it, if you're the 7th or 8th seed, the win, and you're automatically in. If you lose, you still have one more chance. The 9th and the 10th seed, you got one shot. You have to win twice, but you lose once and you're gone. So the winner of that 9-10 seed takes on the loser of the 7-8 seed. But I kind of like it. It's quick, and then it kind of ties up the rest of the playoffs.
I was going to ask you that because I think it's like you. I agree. I like it too. It's a newer thing, and I think it's hard to get fans to buy into newer formats, and especially around the playoffs. Like, we like to complain about any change. We think that everything is perfect, but also flawed at the same time. Like, we complain about stuff, and then when it changes, we're like, we don't like that either. So, as sports fans generally, I think this is a fun format, and I'm wondering, like, do you think that this has increased your NBA postseason game watching consumption when you have stakes like this at the beginning of the playoffs and not just when you get to like the conference finals?
Yeah, I do. There's something about these are sports like hockey, like baseball, basketball. They're series sports. So when you get to something now, the 7-8 isn't a one and done. The winner is automatically in, which is a cool thing. The loser gets another shot against the winner of the 9-10 seed. The 9-10 seed is the one winning, you're in, losing, you're out. So I kind of like the one game, like the tie in baseball. If you have to break that tie at the end of the season, you have the one game, and everything comes down to one game in sports that are used to series. Okay, you lost the first game. Well, it's still best of 3 or best of 5 or whatever, or best of 7. So you have a chance to make it up here. Especially the 9-10 seed, it's a one and done. Lose and you go home and you start your vacation. So I do like kind of the finality of it. And it's all to set up like, to go against the 1 and 2 seed where by seeding you're not supposed to win. But who knows? A lot of people have been talking about, especially the Lakers, are getting healthy at the right time. As I said, they're now locked in to play Memphis, the number 2 seed. Atlanta's locked in to play Boston, the number 2 seed. So we'll see how the rest of that plays out. And real quick, and you mentioned changes, and I don't know, because it's early in the season, I really haven't become totally invested yet in Major League Baseball, though I do know Tampa Bay is 11-0. I mean, down in your area there when you're down there? I mean, my gosh, kind of, sort of in the area of, but pretty impressive for them. They're
better than the Marlins, who are actually in my area.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, the Marlins definitely more in your area. Well, they're 5-7, and Tampa 11-0, so doing well. But the pitch clock, I like the pitch clock. They said the last time the game averaged, when it was at its lowest, was 1985. It averaged 2 hours and 45 minutes. I think right now they're at 2 hours and 39 minutes, and it's probably going to continue that way. And as I said, when you change, and this is a major change, but I mean, how tired do you get of after every pitch a batter stepping out and redoing his glove and scratching himself and and doing all the quirks that they do, but they're able to do that because they had the time to do it. Now they don't. And as I've always said, because they've changed rules in every sport, is players get used to them. You adapt. You just find a way to adapt, and you adapt. Batter has to be ready by the time there's 8 seconds to go. Pitcher has the clock he knows when he has to throw it by. So you learn, and we've had some violations, both on the pitcher and on the batter. But I like it. I like it, the fact that the game moves along a lot quicker.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I think there's definitely pros and cons to it, like every rule change, but it feels like one of those things that in 5 years we'll be like, oh my God, do you remember baseball before the pitch clock?
Yeah.
It was so boring. And that's been like the biggest complaint with baseball, is that there's too many games and some of them are like 4.5 hours long. But the flip side of that is, if you've ever been to one of those really short games, like I went to a Cubs game a few years ago where I think Cole Hamels threw a no-hitter, and that game ended in like 2 hours. Like, it was the quickest baseball game I've ever went to in my life. My friends and I got there in the second inning, had like a beer, and then the game was over. And it totally was not the baseball attending scenario that you think of when you're going to like, oh, we're going to spend the afternoon at Wrigley Field. We'll be there for like 3 hours, have a few beers, go out. It was like that. But I mean, that's like an extreme scenario. And like you said, the games are still averaging closer to 3 hours, which is still really long.
It is long.
You think about a lot of, football obviously is an outlier. Those games are incredibly long, and gameplay is pretty short in them in terms of like actual action and not just, play clock running off or whatever. But when you compare it to like basketball or hockey or Formula One, which I love because it's only 2 hours long, it's still on the longer side. It's still a slow, kind of quiet game that builds. And I, for one, am a huge fan of the change, because I have always thought that, like, especially the ends of games, they drag out so late that I can't. People like me, young people, we all have a addiction to short form video in our phones, and our attention spans are not probably what they should be.
I didn't want to say it. I'm glad you said it.
It's true. Yeah. I will say it about myself. I am the type of person that will be doing the crossword puzzle while I'm watching something on Netflix, while I'm, online shopping on my computer. Like, my attention span's all over the place. So for me, having a batter come up and have a certain amount of time where I know I'm going to see the pitcher throw the pitch and I'm not going to zone out and then, oh, I missed it. What happened? Like, that sort of thing happens to me watching baseball. Maybe I need attention deficit disorder medication,
I
but
think
it's better this way.
Yeah, you're right. Your whole generation is like that, multitasking all the time. It blows my mind. There are times around the house here when I have to use my Apple Watch to find my phone because I don't know where I left it.
I can't imagine.
I know, but I mean, I'm just not on my phone all the time. Speaking of rule changes, so I'm wondering, it's kind of a quick question of what was one of the best rule changes in any sport. If I had to look at one, I would say, because some are really obviously big time changes. This is because baseball is a sport that had no clock, right? I mean, it was freewheeling. There was no clock, and now we have a clock, at least in the pitching, to look at. We've seen a number of changes in a lot of sports, but to me, the one that maybe helped the sport the most was basketball and the shot clock. Because remember before, you probably don't remember before the shot clock. I mean,
wasn't that like the 1970s?
You would have, Jess, you would have teams literally playing, where four corners is, the four corner stall. Basically, a team would get a lead, and with no shot clock, they would get in the four corners on their side of the court and just pass the ball around. And you'd literally go minutes without a shot because there was no shot clock. A team had a lead, and they were just trying to stall. It was, and that's all the basketball we knew at the time because that's how it was played. So all of a sudden now the shot clock forcing you to shoot the ball, I think has been one of the great changes to a sport to make it more watchable. Because let's also remember the NBA in the 80s was, they were, especially the early 80s, the NBA finals were on tape delay. I mean, it was kind of a dying sport a little bit. And I got reminded of that. I did see the movie Air about the Air Jordans, and it takes you back to, I was a senior at Notre Dame when this was all going down, and Chris and I were there, and it was really kind of reminiscing about those times and what was going on. I think that was one of the best changes in all of sports, about like one change that really, really helped the game. I look at the shot clock as one of those.
Well, okay, two things. First thing, my dad always tells the story about how there was no shot clock in college basketball, and he asked Digger Phelps once at Notre Dame, like, do you think there will be a shot clock? And Digger's like, no, you're an idiot. And then like a year later there was one or something like that. I don't know.
Did your dad go talk in his face and say, Digger, who's the idiot now?
I don't know. I don't know the exact lore of that story, but my dad loves to talk about it. The second thing is I read a story recently about an Oklahoma high school basketball game, because high school basketball doesn't mandate shot clocks because something I never thought about, but shot clocks, you need someone to operate them, which means you need to pay someone and or at least a volunteer to do it. And it's not just like it magically appears out of thin air. Like, you have to put some infrastructure behind it. But there was an Oklahoma basketball game a couple months ago, and the final score was 4-2.
Yeah.
And so this conversation came up, and people were talking about, like, okay, it's finally time. We have to do this. We have to invest in it, because you can't have a 4-2 high school basketball game. That's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it was Jess, it was awful. And I watched a lot of that. Now, I didn't play basketball, but I wrestled at that time. But watching basketball, oh my God! But again, that's all we knew. So it was normal. You were like, oh, they're going to the four corners. That's what they're going to do now, and that's just what basketball was. So all of a sudden, that you want to talk about a change. Now a team has to shoot in X amount of time, and I'm glad they brought it in from everything. Obviously, basketball. I'm glad they brought it into lacrosse as well. Anything where you're forced to kind of move the action
create
along.
Offense.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I can give you my worst rule change, the one that I hate the most, and this is extremely controversial because I appreciate this technology in tennis, but I hate it in soccer, and that is like the offsides VAR technology. When you're watching a lot of professional soccer games and there is a goal that could have been even like fractionally offsides, the players celebrate, but then there's like a 2-minute wait until you know whether or not it's a goal. And I hate the way that it's taken so much momentum out of like goal celebrations. And I know that probably makes me sound like an old fart, because I'm like, back in my day, we didn't have a computer tell us who was offsides. The ref did it. But and the flip side of that is I'm pretty sure it's like the same kind of technology in tennis, where now if the ball is like just a tiny fraction of the way out, they can do the like computer thing and zoom in on it and see it and review it for big plays. And so I like it there, but then when they do that with the soccer players and you see that like a guy's like, pinky toe is offsides and they call the goal back, like it frustrates me to no end.
Number one, best video review in all of sports is tennis, without question.
Yeah.
You challenge it, they show it, it's done within 20 seconds, right? And it's over. And you can see, everybody can see, because they put it on the screen in there, they put it on TV. You can see in or out. In soccer, again, I don't know who does reviewing of the video, but you would think that would be something, as soon as a goal is scored, if it's close, that now the NFL has that kind of that eye in the sky, that person upstairs. The sky judge who can look at things really quickly before it has to go to review. Maybe that's what they do already in soccer. I'm not positive.
I think it depends on the league. I think different levels have different proceeds for it.
But anything that takes a little more time. But also there are some things that confound me as well. And this is not shocking because I've been bitching about it for years. We're replaying now everything in the NFL.
Yeah.
And one play that has been destroying defenses forever is the roughing the passer. They're calling it.
Oh, here we go again.
It's embarrassing how much they're calling it. And again, at the owners' meeting, they brought up, do we want to make that reviewable? And they shot it down, and it's not reviewable, which is bullshit. I mean, you want to talk about just not even giving a damn about the defense anymore. I mean, how many third and long or whatever, and you're off the field, and they call some rinky-dink, foul on the quarterback, and all of a sudden you got a first down. So that's one that still kind of grates at me. You're replaying everything else. Don't sit there and tell me, oh my God, that's going to add 10 minutes to the game. It's not. It's not. You just choose not to do anything that's going to possibly benefit the defensive side of the ball. There, I had to get that off my chest.
It gave me an opportunity to eat my piece of bacon because
I saw that, so I figured I kept talking. Yeah.
It was delicious.
Do you like the bacon crispy? I'm a big crispy guy.
I'll eat it anyway.
Really? See, I asked for it extra crispy. I mean, I like
crispy bacon, but I
like
also
it so it's almost brittle that if you handle it too tough, it'll start to break on you. That's how I like my bacon.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah, it is. I just love it.
I made a Easter frittata with bacon in it, so we got a lot of leftover bacon.
Oh wow! I'm a big fan of a frittata. Was it an egg white frittata?
It was all like yolk and egg white.
Okay.
Bell peppers.
Right.
Spinach, goat cheese, bacon.
Oh, okay.
Onion.
You put some Tabasco over the top of that? Put some hot sauce on it?
Of course, yeah, for sure.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay, my mouth's watering a little bit.
Easter at your house next year.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Out in nice,
I'll bring
warm,
the
AZ.
peeps.
Oh, God, I hate peeps. I hate peeps. Here we go
know.
again with the peeps. The only thing good about a peep is putting it in a microwave and watching it explode. The only problem now as an adult, I then have to clean said microwave.
Yeah,
so enough of that. All right, so that's what's NBA's we mentioned, playing games going on now. Baseball, we're 12, 13 games in. But we just had one of the greatest spectacles of all time in the Masters, which I do enjoy watching. I probably like watching, of the four majors, which one do you like best napping to?
Oh, it's got to
be. What you do.
Yeah, it's got to be the Masters.
Yeah.
My dog agrees. She's barking
Yeah.
in the background. I think the Masters, because it's Jim Nance and he is really good at doing the quiet golf voice.
Right.
Best in the business at it. Plus, it's always in the springtime. It's usually kind of chilly out, rainy out. It's a good time of year to take a good nap on a Saturday and Sunday. So the problem this year was that they stopped play so many times that my nap schedule was totally thrown off. So it was unfortunate, but John Rahm wins it. I think the rain delay probably helped him and hurt Brooks Koepka, who was in the lead going into the second half of the third round or second round, I guess.
The way you're
confusing.
right, it got messed up. It did get messed up. Yeah.
Going into the final day of coverage,
Right.
Brooks Koepka was in the lead, but I don't know. It was fun, but definitely not the most exciting tournament this year because of so many stoppages.
So for me, the best one to watch is it's called the Open, or the British Open. The Open,
for sure.
Because
we can call it the British Open.
That is the one where you have. Now we had some bad weather in Augusta with the rain, but I like the bad weather that they have to continue to play in
the
Open.
Yeah.
The wind, and it's cold. I love that. I love watching players have to deal with that, maybe on a links course or something. So I love watching the Open the most. But certainly, from the tradition of the Masters, I get it. What was interesting to me this year is, well, first, Brooks Koepka, he's there. I'm watching that full swing, kind of like the Drive to Survive, the Netflix thing.
Well, I was thinking about him having the space in his trophy cabinet for when he wins the Masters, and the whole weekend I was like, wow, he's he might get to fill his trophy cabinet, but then it all kind of fell apart.
Absolutely, I heard
round.
It collapsing on that, and John Rahm playing well, and just Brooks not. But I remember in full swing where I was watching it, he was in a place where he said, I can't compete with the top players. My game is just not there right now and trying to improve. Well, here he was with a 3-4 stroke lead at the Masters, and unfortunately gave that one up again by his bad play and John Rahm's good play. But what was the added thing to me, Jess, was LIV versus PGA. Was it now? You couldn't really hear any of it there. It didn't seem like they were booing any live players, but I remember asking the question out on Twitter, not for the people that were there, but people that were watching. Were you automatically rooting against the live players? And I would say 90% were, but 10% were like, no. They, listen, they made business decisions. We have other sports where, our American sports are dealing with foreign countries that treat people for shit, with the NBA and China, as well. And people are like, hey, we sit there and we complain about that, but then nobody
90% though.
Oh yeah, we're against it.
That's more than I would expect.
Me too. And what else was interesting, did the network get on this? So here you had a 52-year-old Phil Mickelson, who I believe had the best placing of a guy that old in a Masters. And he didn't get, and his round finished well before the other guys. So there was time, and CBS didn't interview him.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a little surprising to me. That was kind of a, we're saying without saying that we're not interviewed because of the live stuff, right? I mean, why else would they not be?
Or Phil doesn't want to talk to them because of their coverage, because he's got beef with guys on that network because of everything that's happened last year. I mean, it could go both ways.
That's a good point. You know what?
I could tell you, listening to the pre-Sunday coverage, I did get the sense that they didn't want to play up that storyline. They didn't want, CBS did not want, and I think I might have been watching Golf Channel actually. They didn't want to play that up, but they also seemed like they were really invested in John Rahm on Sunday morning. Without
a doubt. I think without a doubt that's what they wanted, because all of a sudden you had Phil up there, you had Brooks up there, you had a couple of live players that were up there. And eventually I think things will get worked out, from championship world rankings and championship points and all that. Hopefully they do. We'll see. But I thought that was interesting, and I agree. I think there was kind of that undercurrent of, boy, I hope John Rahm pulls this thing off here. Because Rory, the biggest mouthpiece for the PGA, didn't even make the cut. He had a horrible tournament.
And he withdrew this week from the Heritage Open, or the Heritage Classic, which is in Hilton Head. So he's not playing. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I think it also hurt them that there wasn't a real Tiger storyline. He withdrew on Sunday morning.
Did you see him walking or limping? Yeah. And I'd imagine when you're not playing well, every injury starts to hurt a little
Feels
more.
Worse. Yeah.
And it was cold and rainy, and his limping, it was noticeable. We're like, okay, there's no way he's going to finish. Because you're right. No matter where Tiger is, and we know, as Even said, I don't know how many more of these I can play in. I'm only playing the majors and maybe a couple other tournaments. So, and he's still got 3 more years if he's going to hit the Champions Tour and start to do that as well, or if he's just going to caddy for Charlie, as Charlie starts,
he'll get into pickleball.
Yeah, maybe he will. But I'm with you. Everybody always wants to see a storyline, with Tiger Woods. Can he golf well? Can he make the cut? And this was not it. Speaking of storylines, though, the biggest story, is the NFL. We're getting ready for the draft. So I'm looking forward. We're sorry you're not going to be out there. Me and Mike will be out at the DraftKings studios covering the draft live through the first round. So that'll be a lot of fun. Sorry you won't be there for that.
I will miss you both.
And so as we're preparing for that, which is a nice mixture because Mike knows college. Well, Mike knows college and pro, as good as anybody. But covering college ball, knows these guys really well. So we'll have a good time on that set breaking this all down. But outside of that, the headline a while ago was Lamar Jackson said he requested a trade. And everybody was talking about it was falling apart there. I had always continued to say, anything, stacks of money can always build a bridge back up again. I always thought he may end up in Baltimore, and now Willie. Odell Beckham Jr. signs a 1-year deal with the Ravens. Everybody thought he was going to go to the Jets and be part of that receiving crew with Aaron Rodgers whenever that deal gets worked out. He signs a 1-year, $15 million guaranteed. I think it's $15 million is guaranteed. He can make it up to $18 million, whatever. It's a lot of money. And bringing in a wide receiver, something they didn't do when Lamar didn't have to make the big money yet. They didn't bring in a big-time wide receiver. But now Odell's coming off an ACL, so, we'll see where he is. But, there was the tweets all of a sudden, Lamar talking about that signing to Baltimore. Jess, I think more and more just what I'd said from the beginning, that Baltimore did this because they couldn't come to a deal. They basically told Lamar, hey, go find your all guaranteed money somewhere. Let's see if somebody offers, and then maybe we'll match it. And Lamar isn't finding that at all. So I think what I originally said is what's going to happen. He's going to end up back in Baltimore, and either, if they don't work out a deal, playing on $32 million, which everybody is screaming, don't do it. And I'm always screaming the other way. I'm not turning down $32 million, either.
Well, so you think that Odell Beckham is an indication that Lamar Jackson will play with the Ravens?
I thought so all along. I mean,
Okay.
once offers weren't coming in, and they didn't have to come in right away, but once we weren't hearing anything out there that any deals were coming about, and we're seeing all the teams that need quarterbacks kind of either filled it or are looking to the draft to do it and starting over again. And goes back to what we said earlier. They don't want to pay this monster guaranteed deal. And is Lamar going to settle for a non-guaranteed deal? Because it doesn't look like he's getting a guaranteed one, unless he were to do the Kirk Cousins thing and do a shorter deal for all guaranteed money. What did Kirk do? A 3-year, $84 million, I think, was all guaranteed. So it would have to be a shorter deal for all guaranteed, or a longer deal and it not all guaranteed. And I think it's going to be back with Baltimore. And I think those two, then throw Mark Andrews in there, and they always have a running game. We'll see what this team can do. But I'm sure Lamar has been pretty disappointed with the field of how it's looked out there. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's hard for owners, the billionaires, not to win in certain battles. And
well, yeah, they certainly have most of the upper hand when it comes to these things. So do you think a lot of this Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson quarterback drama is going to go down on draft night or shortly before?
Well, I think for the Packers, a lot depends on, do you want your draft picks now? Because if you want the draft picks you're going to get from the Jets now, then, or for this draft, then you got to trade them before the draft, which as it gets closer to the draft, if that's what Green Bay wants, the Jets, are in that leverage position of, hey, if you want some picks for the draft, take what we're offering, or, we'll wait, and you're not going to get them for this year. So they both can have a little bit of leverage, but as it gets closer to the draft, the Jets, might be able to look at that and say, let's try and get what we can get if the Green Bay wants some of these picks for this draft, which I would imagine that they do. But, it's just coming down to compensation. They'll figure it out.
Yeah,
One's high,
and the cap
one's low.
hit, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Change.
So
yeah.
I think they'll figure that all out. The interesting other news that came out was that supposedly the Patriots were shopping Mac Jones in the offseason.
Interesting.
And we see how well that worked. You got no takers. Either the asking price was too high, or teams were like, no thanks, because he came out of the gate strong and has really kind of cooled since then.
But the Bailey Zappi era began in 2022 and is only up from here.
So I'm wondering, and I'll just ask the question now, and maybe next time we can look at them all and see who has the worst quarterback room in the NFL. Right? I mean, we're talking starter and backup. You have the third string quarterback, which I hope also that they're going to let a third quarterback dress and not count against the roster, so we don't run into two quarterbacks getting hurt. You got to put a halfback in at quarterback, because I think it's ridiculous. But listen, I mean, do you start right in that room with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi? I mean,
if we're looking at play of just last season, what do you do with the Russell Wilson, Jarrett Stidham quarterback room?
I guess I have.
I guess I have,
looking forward to this year, I have more faith that Russell Wilson will come back a little bit to what he was,
right?
More than maybe Mac Jones. So that's we'll make that a little project for everybody out there, to see what they think about what's the worst quarterback room in the NFL. New England's got
Derek Carr trade. I think the Saints could have been up there.
So you have Derek Carr and Jameis Winston if he stays there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's certainly not worse than Mac Jones and Zappi.
Before the trade, I think so.
Yeah.
Now it's not really in contention.
So we'll see where the Texans are, because then after the draft you're going to throw in rookies. So
all right, I'll work on it.
We'll work on that. And congratulations, lastly in the NFL, to Cliff Kingsbury. So got that quarterback coaching job at USC. I mean, still an amazing thing where a guy fails as a head coach in college and falls up to be a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah, and ends up back at USC somehow.
And by the way, in the meantime, got himself just a banging house in Arizona.
Yeah,
I mean, remember we got
bad.
to see all that during COVID when he was hanging out at his house. It was an awesome place. And
well,
now
I'm glad
back
he came back from his trip to Thailand where he was apparently incognito mode for 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So it's Lincoln Riley, the head coach at SC, Kingsbury, the quarterback coach. That's great news for Caleb Williams, who's be the presumptive number 1 pick in next year's draft. So we'll see how that one goes. But Cliff is after his leisurely stroll out of the country, he is back.
But how much do you need a quarterback coach when your quarterback already won the Heisman?
Well, I guess like anything else, there's always things to improve upon because,
that's fair.
Especially to the next level because, we've seen plenty of Heisman winning quarterbacks not be able to play in the NFL. I think this kid will.
What if he gets worse? I would be.
Wouldn't that be something?
I would be afraid to don't. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that will because that's
cook.
Those are power names with Lincoln Riley and Cliff Kingsbury that all of a sudden are now coaching you. So pretty interesting. So we'll keep talking as we get closer to the draft. But let's get to the NBA draft. Was in Soho. I didn't know
WNBA draft.
The NBA draft's coming up pretty soon as well. But the WNBA draft was a few days ago, as again the taping of this. I didn't realize it at the time till I saw it pick after pick. Dallas had 4 first-round picks. I mean, my God.
Yeah, I think the Fever also had a number of first-round picks too. The thing that's always crazy about the WNBA draft is that there's so much talent coming out of college and there's so much talent in the WNBA, but the rosters are smaller and there's not as many teams as in the NBA. So the training camps are incredibly competitive. And so you don't always know, on draft night, who's going to be playing where when the opening day happens. So it was fun to watch. I know it got 500,000 people watched it. That, shocker when you put something on TV, people want to watch it if it's a good product. And I think the other thing that helps with that is that it's 5 days after the Final Four, so there's just a ton of momentum for seeing where the college athletes go in the WNBA. And I think the timing of it is pretty fun because it just happens so fast.
So congrats to Aliyah Boston. She was the number 1 pick by the Indiana Fever. You're right, they had pick number 1 and pick number 7 as well. Dallas had picks 3, 4, 5, and 11. And like you said, with the smaller roster, I mean, it's interesting. Could first rounders not even make your team? It's going to be pretty wild. But Diamond Miller went second to the Minnesota Lynx as Maddie Siegrist. She was a leading scorer in the country, I believe, right? From Villanova. Went to Dallas, as well as Stephanie Soares went to Dallas as well. So I enjoyed watching that. I always enjoy watching Holly Rowe do her thing at these drafts. She's I worked with Holly, Jess, when I first got to ESPN. Holly was when I was doing college ball. Holly was a sideline for when I started out doing college ball. So Holly and I go way, way back. She is I love her. She's fantastic. But
she's truly the perfect person for that job.
She is. She absolutely is. But they did a nice job. So that's over. That season starts soon. NBA draft is coming up soon as well. So things continue to go as we get into at some point the quiet part. When we have to do these pods, it's just like when we were doing radio, when you get into when there's not really a lot going on, what to talk about. So when that happens...
We'll talk about Outer Banks.
That's exactly right. It's exactly where I was going.
Okay.
We talk... First, real quick, do you watch Succession?
I do.
Did you see the last one?
I'm not caught up. I know. I heard it was crazy, and somehow it hasn't been spoiled for me yet, so don't do it, Mike. Please don't do it.
Because if you had seen it, I was going to ask the question... Are we 3 days past when it was on at the taping of this? So can we do a spoiler alert? Obviously, we cannot because of you.
I'll catch up, I promise.
Jess, this was
I heard it was crazy.
Ever saw it coming.
Okay.
Did not see it coming.
All right.
And I thought the way they did it was really, really good. So it's.
I'm scared.
And boy, what it sets up, for the last, because again, this is the last season of it. So okay, all right. So we won't say anything about
we'll
that.
We'll save the Succession and the Outer Banks for when next week. We'll save it for next week. I don't think I can wait any longer.
No. You got to watch it. And so you did see Outer Banks. So we talked
I know
about
my priorities are shit.
So listen, we've talked, and everybody out there, you do it. You've watched a series, be it on Netflix, Showtime, HBO, Hulu, Apple TV, whatever, that has sucked. But it sucks you in so much, though, that you have to watch it and get to the end of it. And we've all been there, and Outer Banks is clearly one of those. It is. Every time I watch it, I say, why am I watching it? Yet I cannot turn it off. Yeah,
the finale was truly unhinged. It left me with more questions than answers. When you told me before the season started that the characters would end up in South America, I thought to myself, surely he's mistaken. He just meant they were in, the Bahamas or Barbados or wherever they are in the first episode. But no, they actually went to South America, and Mike
didn't need passports either.
Okay, well, let's just get into it really quick. I'll give you a couple minutes on my thoughts. So they go. This is a spoiler for the finale of Outer Banks, which is a show that no one should watch, and yet everyone should experience. Yeah. I can't imagine how at the finale of this show they go to South America. They're in the jungle. They find the lost city of El Dorado. There's like a cave made of gold. All of these people die brutally in the final episode. And these 17-year-olds who should be in school and aren't survive. They also, they took a private jet there, which apparently they didn't need, a flight manifest for, because none of them had passports. They were able to go through immigration or customs in whatever country. I don't think it was specified that they were in. And all of these people get shot. They get killed. My favorite part was they dug a grave for one of the characters who died in the same day. They did kind of a montage and they buried him and then they left. And my boyfriend's sitting next to me and he's like, I've dug a trench before, a pretty deep trench, and it took me and my friend an entire day with shovels to do it. These kids don't even have shovels. So there's the point is, there's a lot of things that happen that are unfathomable.
You think?
And then they do an 18-month time jump, and they're all getting honored for finding the lost city of El Dorado. Yeah. But I'm like, hang on a second. How are we not going to explain how they got back to North Carolina without passports? How all of these dead bodies were found in their wake, and none of them have been arrested or charged with crimes. They have done so many things that are just unfathomable to me, Mike. And then they're getting honored in their hometown. And it just made me fucking angry.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, they're killing mercenaries. I mean, these 17-year-olds are taking out mercenaries. I mean,
it's bizarre. It's batshit.
It is, and you're watching. You go, why am I watching this? What am I doing? And and yet, at the end, I'll ask you what I asked you a while ago. When it ended, do you think it ended, or do you think we're getting another season?
Because as soon as they showed that man give them a look, I said to Lee, Schrodinger's creepy old man. He's coming back. He's got something to do with this ending, and he did. And as soon as he said the words Edward Teach, I turned to Lee and I said, Blackbeard. They're going to try to find Blackbeard's treasure, which is buried somewhere along the Carolinas, which is, let's maybe keep the show in the Outer Banks next year if it comes back, and maybe I'll tune in and watch it. See, what am I saying? Stop me.
So here's the thing, Jess. I don't know how many seasons it was. Is it 4?
3.
We invested 3 seasons.
30 hours.
If there's another season, we're going to watch it.
I'm going to watch it. But why? I don't want to.
I don't either.
Have to.
I don't either. I've never seen them do normal kid things yet. It's been so.
They're insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. So if you are watching it, enjoy. And Godspeed, because I have no idea why you're watching it.
Tweet me your thoughts.
I'd like to know also what other series out there that you just hated, but you had to keep watching. You just, like I said, there's another one called Wrong Side of the Tracks.
I've never even heard of it.
That is on Netflix that I finished this current season. I don't know if there'll be another one. I don't deep dive these things like my son Mike does. So I have no idea if there'll be another season. But it's another one every time I was watching it, I'm like, what am I doing? And yet here I am on it, watching it over and over again. So we all have series like that. I have too many of them, I think, like that, unfortunately. But I'm glad at least we get a respite from Outer Banks for at least a little while.
I need it. I need a break. But I'll be back. I hate to say it.
I think we both will be back. And you know what? You and I will be back to do another podcast at some point.
See you next
again.
week.
We'll do that. As long as I can, I'll send you, gifts and wines and things to try and, make you choose me over Kate Fagan.
Sounds like I'm going to go play pickleball. I'll see you later.
With Kate?